back in early October of 2022, y'all have seen my top 15 favorite roller coasters that I've ridden. Well, today we're going to go negative. I've ridden enough roller coasters to make a ranking of my 10 least favorites. One thing every coaster enthusiast knows is that not every roller coaster is good. So I'm going to show you my least favorite roller coasters so you can get an idea of what kind of ride experience to expect out of these. I have 107 coaster credits if that helps. I've not ridden every single roller coaster world, of course, so just keep that in mind. And of course, just so we're clear, I mean absolutely no disrespect whatsoever to any of the manufacturers of these roller coasters or the parks that host them. This video is supposed to combine honest opinion with comedic hyperbole. Alright, so please don't send angry letters to any of those places. Thank you. So let's take a look at these roller coasters. Starting off the list at number 10 is Roar at Six Flags America. Now, this roller coaster is much higher than it used to be because during the 2022 season, Six Flags America did some retracking, and Dirk and I both thought, yeah, it has quite improved the ride a bit. I mean, we rode it first thing when we arrived in August of 2022, so maybe it was just a fluke, or maybe it was just warming up, but regardless, it was much better. However, it's still here because the other worst rides on it average it out. So what exactly is not right about this coaster? At least before. Well, the first drop is alright, as well as the first turnaround, but then it becomes forceless, but also rough. I'm not sure how those two get together, but it has literally no airtime. It doesn't feel really that exciting, and especially rough in some places, especially just before the shed-like thing. And overall, it was just not a very fun ride. If I ever go back to Six Flags America, I'll definitely try again to see if the retracking is done will work, and who knows, maybe Roar will get out of my bottom 10 worst coasters. But for now, I think number 10 is a good place to put it, just because I'm not exactly sure if our good ride is just a fluke or not, and most of the times I've been in it, it just wasn't that fun. Alright, this is going to be a controversial one. Number 9 is Space Mountain at Disney's Magic Kingdom. Alright, wait, stop! Now this one, I need to please try again with it, because I don't think I got the full experience that I probably should have, and also there are 2 tracks, so what exactly was not right about this coaster? Well, one thing I don't like is head choppers. I'm not sure why. I mean, I'm okay with them in moderation. ElToro has head choppers, and that's my second favorite roller coaster as of now, but with Space Mountain, it just tossed the bar at you like every second. Of course, I knew that I would have been safe. They're measured carefully so you don't hit them, but I just kept my head down on reflex, and I just kept it down throughout the entire ride and just couldn't really experience it very properly. It just didn't work out for me. But again, I do have to try it again in the future, hopefully staying up straight that time so I can enjoy the experience. But for now, it's going number 9. Number 8 is Runaway Mine Train at Six Flags Great Adventure. More like Runaway Pain Train. This seems like a fun ride. I really wish I could like it, and I do love how it has a turn around the water, but it's just extremely rough and uncomfortable. I don't know why. In my one ride, my dominant impression was just being tossed around in my seat. I don't think it's that intense. With an aero looper, I could understand more just because there's a lot more speed involved, but a mine train? Really? Now, I'm sure all these rides were made with the best of intentions, absolutely, but how is a mine train that rough? I'm ranking this below Space Mountain just because Space Mountain seems like a fun ride if you don't mind head choppers, but with Runaway Mine Train, there's just no reason for it to be that rough. I would really like it if they were to smooth out the steel a bit, then it could be one of my favorite mine trains. We'll have to see. Number 7 is Corkscrew at Cedar Point, and it really disappoints me to have to put a Cedar Point roller coaster on this list, but I'm sorry, this is just an outdated ride. I don't like it very much. I heard from Airtime Thrills that the restraints aren't good, but actually, Dirk and I thought the restraints are okay, and the first drop is okay. The airtime hill does have some airtime, but it was more of a painful airtime, and then the loop is actually quite decent, but during all this, again, you're just being tossed around in your seat, and the corkscrews, one of the prettiest parts of Zero Point, don't feel that exciting at all, and thank goodness this is a short ride. I want to ride it once for credit, and it felt like one ride was enough. But I do hope Zero Point still keeps around as long as possible, just because it's such a historic ride. The first modern coaster with 3 inversions, but it had an uncomfortable ride experience that I'd rather not do again. Number 6 is Looping Star at Jolly Roger on the Pier in Ocean City, Maryland, and it's my first roller coaster with an inversion. Wonderful. Now, for what I've heard, Pinvari looping cyclones are awful rides, very painful, but back when I rode it in 2015, the dominant impression wasn't pain, but how the restraints work is that we were just told to hold them down. They didn't lock into position. What? I don't think I ever felt more unsafe on a roller coaster before. I held it down as the operator told me, and then focused more on holding down the restraint than actually enjoying the ride. I don't even know a part of this ride that I like. Just the thought of falling out was the dominant impression of this ride. I rode it a couple times during the day to get my value's worth of my Riderama that day. I do want to ride again, and I feel like it's going to rank even lower just because I know what headbanging is now. But seriously, that restraint system shouldn't have even passed inspection, and that alone brings it into my bottom 6. At number 5 is Firebird at Six Flags America. What? This is at number 5? How is this number 1 or 2? I would have been okay with 2. Why is this only at number 5? I demand a recount. There has to be some kind of fraud here. Any mistakes? Check again. Oh, there are no mistakes? It's supposed to be at number 5? The things I do just for the credit. So at number 5, we have Firebird at Six Flags America. Wow, it feels different to be talking about it in a professional format rather than just trash talking it. Every viewer of my channel knows that this is the worst roller coaster I've ever ridden that I did not expect to be bad. My first experience was on January 1st, 2020, and I was actually looking forward to this ride just because of its historic status, but halfway down the lift hill, I've noticed that the ride just punches you away. Like, I can't imagine how bad it would have been in its stand-up form if its fullest form is like that. The dangling aspect of this ride doesn't even feel like it exists, just because the dominant impression is just being punched away by those restraints. Like, even when I try to ride defensively, it just punches away at my ears, and at the corkscrew and some of those turns around the end, it feels downright painful. Sometimes with the result of me saying, ow, I don't understand how this ride is one of the most popular at Six Flags America. I never enjoyed my ride experiences on it. Stupid bird outside! Although I am absolutely thankful for the contributions this coaster gave to the music park industry. This is B&M's first roller coaster in 1990, and if it weren't for the success of this one initially, they wouldn't have got great rides like Great Bear, Canobie, Fury V2 Raptor, Gatekeeper, all fantastic B&Ms from what I've experienced or what I've heard. It's an important part of roller coaster history, but it sucks.
Firebird, Bang, Thomas and Percy and Gordon and James and Derpy and Sir Topham Hatt and Champion of Bull.
At number 4 is Mighty Canadian Mindbuster at Canada's Wonderland. This is the worst wooden roller coaster I have ridden. Whereas Roar was at least decent in some parts, Mighty Canadian Mindbuster was terrible from the moment we left the lift hill. And I wish it was a good ride just because I love how it goes through the water park and you see all the structures around you. But actually, it's a terrible ride experience, especially in that final helix. That bings you up the most. Like, what happened here? This needs a retrack ASAP. I sat in the very back row. I'm not sure which one is worse, but I felt like one ride was good enough, so I didn't go back to try it for the front. Many people call this Mighty Canadian Spinebuster, and one YouTuber called it Jackhammer Simulator, which absolutely makes sense. It just feels like a jackhammer on roller coaster track. And after thinking about it for a while, I decided to rank this below Firebird because Firebird is made by a manufacturer that at least tries to give it a smooth ride experience, and at least it's not so bad in places. But my Canadian Mindbuster during the entire ride just shakes you around your seat as if you're an interpretive dancer who's been told to interpret the Wall Street crash of 1929. This will never not be funny. Number 3 is Mighty Racer at Six Flags America. This is known as one of the worst roller coasters possibly in the world, and I can definitely see why. I've ridden it twice, and I did not like either ride. It's just a standard SLC, of course, and y'all know how bad those are. The first drop is actually alright, but after that, yeah, it just punches you away on those really big restraints that kind of look like they're supposed to get you right in the ear. Really, Vekoma? I mean, I really respect what you're doing now, but you thought the solution for the headbanging was to make the restraints so they would soften the blow of it? Why not just modify the restraints entirely? Start from square one. And you definitely get kickboxing vibe from all of the headbanging. Possibly worse than Firebird, which is why I rank that below Firebird. Just look at its title. That's all you need to know. Number 2, I have Time Warp at Canada's Wonderland. Man, Canada's Wonderland is such a big park, and overall I did like my experience there, but it has so many rides that are just not good, and this is no exception. With Time Warp, it's a Volare coaster by manufacturer Zamperla, and I enjoyed every other Zamperla I've ever ridden. But to this one, you're lying on your stomach, whereas on a B&M or Vekoma flying coaster, you're actually in seated position but just rotate forwards by 90 degrees. But this one, you're just lying down, and I'm pretty sure there's no bar behind you that prevents you from slipping out. You just put your feet on these ladder-like things and just keep them there, so I'm not sure how that design was approved. So I just put my feet on that ladder as tight as I could, and the actual ride beats you up around every corner. It's an extremely uncomfortable roller coaster, especially in a position where you wouldn't normally be on such intense thrill machine. I was pretty glad when the ride was over, and I have no plans to ride again anytime soon. Now we're going to go to some honorable, or in this case dishonorable mentions. And the first one is going to be quite a surprise for you guys, because I originally had it as my second most underrated roller coaster of all time, Grizzly at King's Dominion. I absolutely loved Grizzly in my first few visits to the park because I really liked how it was a moderately tall wooden coaster in the deep forest. But in my most recent ride in 2021, I was very surprised at how rough this coaster has become. It was absolutely terrible. Next is the SNS free spins. They never really worked out for me. Ghoster Coaster at Canada's Wonderland is kind of like a wooden nothing. Yeah, kind of disappointing that I had to wait 40 minutes for it. Thunderbolt at Six Flags New England also didn't do much for me. Silver Streak at Canada's Wonderland seems fun, but it's actually not. Wildcat Adventure Park USA is a steel nothing. Wildcat Lake Compounds was as bad as I was anticipating, but also didn't really have any redeeming factors, and from what I've heard, it's even worse than when I wrote it. Rebel Yell, I will not accept the name change to Racer 75 at King's Dominion, was absolutely horrid in my last visit. And lastly, Frankie Coaster at House of Frankenstein. Now this was an interesting coaster to visit, no doubt, and it seems fun being on the rooftop, but actually it was quite an uncomfortable roller coaster, especially the turn after the lift hill. I don't get if the turn after a lift hill before the even drop it just pushes you to the side uncomfortably, and yet it did. I felt like one ride here was enough. Alright, that's it for dishonorable mentions. That means it's time for my least favorite, worst, absolutely most terrible roller coaster that I've ever ridden. And it's actually a tie. A two-way tie. Can you guess what they are? Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point in Ohio, and El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey. Both those rides suck. So that's it for my top 10 worst roller coasters list, everyone. Thank you all for watching. Nah, I'm just kidding. Those are my two favorite roller coasters of all time. Actually, for real this time, my least favorite roller coaster of all time is Ravine Flyer 2 at Waldemere Park. Oh boy. Insane Coaster Junkie's going to go full Yinzer mode. No, just kidding. That's nowhere near the bottom. It's one of my favorite roller coasters, of course. For real this time, it is Verbolten at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Ugh, what a terrible roller coaster, am I right? No. Actually, it's Canobie at Hershey Park. Like, why do they have to build a hypercoaster when they already have a much more intensive one right next to it? You don't need two hypers. And what kind of name is Canobie? Seriously? That just feels like a ripoff of Pandemonium. I haven't even written this. This is a terrible ripoff. It's no good. Alright. My actual least favorite coaster is Skyrush at Hershey Park. Okay, it's not for the reason you think. Many people think the restraints are terrible, but actually, I found the restraints to be very comfortable on Skyrush. There was no problem with it. But the main problem was, there's literally no airtime. Okay, for real this time. My least favorite roller coaster of all time is Flight Deck. It's Flight Deck at Canada's Runaway. What were the people thinking when they made this ride? Mind Eraser's first shot is actually decent, it was tolerable, but Flight Deck, from the moment you leave the lift hill, it's terrible. It punches you away at every corner. I was half deaf for like a week afterwards. Okay, not really, but seriously, Canada's Runaway, I beg you, tear this coaster down and get a B&M invert. Seriously, you're far enough away from zero point so that it can actually work. I do not want to be in a boxing ring or a wrestling match when I go to a coaster. So I want to do, I would join University of Bullets wrestling team or kickbox team when I'm going to get punched. If I want to ride a roller coaster, I would go to a park like yours. This is absolutely the worst coaster I've ever ridden. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. What are some of your least favorite roller coasters? Was it worse than Flight Deck? Or maybe you had a great experience on Flight Deck. Maybe all of these coasters are in your top 10 list. I don't know why, but please do share your opinion with me. I love to hear different perspectives. I really do. But seriously, thank you guys for watching, and I really hope you weren't scared by the last one. But seriously, Flight Deck is terrible. I hope you have a really good day. Ride on!